All right, hello and welcome everyone to Chupacabra Games Monday Modern. I believe this is the fifth week of our points league that we've started so far. I think in first place we have a tie between Will and Brinker, I believe, so far, with Adam also having his place up in there as well. But for today's first match, it looks like we will have Caleb versus Mark. Mark appears to still be on scales. He's been our resident scales player for the past few months. I know he's been working a lot on the deck, playing it whenever he gets a chance, and he plays to a decent amount of success we see here. Usually, pretty positive record, and up against a four-color Sahili combo deck, I believe, is what Caleb is registering today. We were speaking a little bit before the tournament. He was saying how the Felidar Sovereign and Healy are probably the two worst cards in his deck, but he's still choosing to register them today and see if he can make Infinite Cats and relive the Splinter Twin dream. And he's resolved the Ren, which is pretty powerful in the matchup, although against Mark's current board, it's not going to be doing a whole lot. But this Fury that's coming down to play will be making a big impact here. Going to take out both of Mark's creatures, or at the very least, make him crack his welding jar. And it looks like he's going to save the Walking Ballista. That'll get a Zabaz to modular over, but Caleb is going to add a Fury, or not a Fury, a Ephemerate onto the Fury to get another layer of the 4 damage, which is just straight up going to kill both of Mark's creatures even before the welding jar comes off. But it looks like Mark is choosing to modular onto the Walking Ballista. Choosing the modular onto the Walking Ballista to give it the extra counter, and then removing those counters to deal with a Fury. So pretty good exchange here. Mark doesn't have a board, but made his opponent use 3 cards there just to get rid of his 2. And he still has a Saga that's about to crack right now, but he's choosing not to make a card construct here, so we're going to be casting some other spells here. More than likely, maybe a Scales effect, or could be a 3-mana spell as well since we floated a colorless. And with Ren and 6 ticking up to 6 on Caleb's turn, pretty close to that alt. I do think Ephemerate is going to be the only thing, and that's not even going to make it into the graveyard either, actually, because it's stuck on rebound and will remain in exile since there aren't any targets. And the spell will just not be able to be cast. So Ozolith is the find off of Urza Saga. We definitely saw Ozolith being played before Urza Saga, but I think with the inclusion of Saga into these decks, into these Scales decks, they get to run less Ozolith just because you can search it up super easily, conveniently with Saga. It looks like that colorless mana combination with the Inkmoth Nexus is going to put out a Walking Ballista, and the remaining 2 mana for Mark is going to be used to cast a Ravager, and I think that was Mark's last card in hand too. So a bit of an all-in state right here, and looks like Ravager will come down and modular trigger, putting a 1/1 counter on itself. Caleb putting the Ephemerate to exile since there's nothing to target. I think Mark is wondering how this works, but that will stay in exile. All right, so it looks like our players did a good job of keeping keeping the board state clean as the just to give some clarification, the Fury was killed before the Ephemerate, so the Ephemerate never uh, fully resolved, resulting in it just going to the graveyard. And players recognized that when it was supposedly rebounded, that it should have already been in the graveyard instead. So in the graveyard, it will remain, which is probably just better for Caleb, is that when this Ren ultimates, it'll have a target. Looks like Omnath has come down. And we might be responding to Trigger here, but no, we're responding to Magus of the Moon. Ren will take up to 7. Magus kind of good against Mark. It'll turn off Inkmoth Nexus and Saga, which I think is a big enough deal to be playing it here. Um, Outside of that, a lot of Mark spells are colorless, so there are a few green cards, but we do see a forest here for Mark. So the Blood Moon effect not going to be doing too much outside of blanking a few lands in Mark's deck, but I think the fact that it does hit Inkmoth and Saga means that it's a pretty reasonable exchange rate for one card. Um, Basically blanking 8 of Mark's cards. I believe he's on 4 Inkmoth. He might be on 3, so maybe 7 or 8 cards. And so it looks like Ren has been dealt with by the Walking Ballista. That's why we see it down to 2 loyalty here. And Ravager up to 6 as the counters were placed from the Ozolith and then put back on to the Ravager. But thanks to the Magus, the Inkmoth isn't going to give Mark a way to kill over the top here just so easily. Um, but he is going to get to come in and finish off the Ren and play a Hangerback Walker, second main phase. Be interesting to see if Caleb has any sort of removal, basically, because of Prismatic Ending or Leyline Binding. Pretty much to shore up this game. But if we keep coming to attack for 6 each way, then I do think Caleb is just going to win this battle, as he does have a couple of fetches in play, which will allow Omnath to trigger 3 times, dealing an additional 4 on the last hit, so we can do 6 down to 7, and the next turn should be lethal, making it so Mark cannot attack really, and even more so than he could already, as Caleb's already at 24 life. But being able to move the Arcbound Ravager counters over to Hangerback Walker is going to be pretty big for Mark here, as if we don't exile this Walker, we're going to get a bunch of Thopters. And without a Ravager, though, it's not as scary, since most of Caleb's cards are going to exile outside of Fury, and Mark is already made the Hangerback Walker a little too big for Fury. Just a lonely Magus of the Moon left for Caleb here. And looks like the tides have really turned in Mark's favor, despite the Blood Moon existing. But a large Hangerback Walker with Ozolith counters, with an Ozolith with counters still on it. Pretty powerful stuff, even with Caleb's higher life total. It's going to need a few more pieces of interaction before he staves off this battle. And here we see a 13-13 Hangerback Walker coming in. Caleb doesn't look like he's a response, just going to take it down to 11. Appears as though he's drawn a lot of lands so far. Is that his 8th land drop for the game? Mark still only has 3. Here is an Arcbound Ravager, which will allow the counters to be moved over to whichever creature Caleb does not block. Remove all these counters over to the patchwork. And yep, Caleb sees it, and we are going over to game number 2. All right, we're back for game number 2 with Caleb on the play this time, as Mark defeated him in game number 1 with a pretty large hangerback walker and arcbound ravager combination. And see Mark spilling his hand here. No lands, maybe one land in that, but either way, he's going to send it back. Caleb looks like he has a pretty good curve with a couple fetches, Teferi, 2 Teferis, 1 Ren, and an Oath of Nissa. So we'll have something to do on the first 3 turns of the game. Looks like he's an Ephemerate as well, so any elemental draws are pretty good. Fun Solitude or Fury, going to be able to Ephemerate that, as well as just tax Mark on when he can play spells with Teferi, and keeping him honest with the run at 6 being able to ping any 1 toughness creatures, as well as help him facilitate making his land drops, which I think he does only have the 2 fetches, so we might have to see upticks on the Ren for a while, but we do have an Oath. Could maybe find another land. But I think the Oath is trying to find a creature here. Probably Fury would be best, but Solitude is also very strong, as the Exile is rather important since most of Mark's creatures are going to have something to do when they die, even if it is just a modular. Kill, pull, fetch out. Probably, definitely a green source. Let's see, green white is the choice. Help cast that Teferi. And we already have another fetch to cast the Ren, so should be no problems getting to 2 mana here. And not many pieces of interaction for Mark, especially on the stack. I think it's really just Veil of Summer in the sideboard. It's not really for this matchup. Looks like Caleb did pick up a third land. At the bottom, at least one prismatic ending, might have been two. Mark will lead on a forest into a 1-drop as well. This time, the Ozolith will make an appearance on turn 1. Definitely a little worse than Hardened Scales on turn 1, I will say. Cards are very powerful, do slightly different things. I think Ozolith is a little bit better once you have some action going, just already have counters in play. And Hardened Scales is really good at setting things up, just making your creatures way easier to cast. And for you get a lot more out of them too. Just having the additional counters going from modular, and any other way that they're going to be transferred over. But Patchwork Automaton going to come down for unturned number 2. And with Ward 2, it does make it a little interesting if Caleb wants to ping it with Ren, as the ability will be countered. But looks like he's going to opt for Teferi here and just bounce Mark Saga, which I think is a pretty powerful play. Basically, just a time warp here, and you get to develop a Planeswalker. One of the, not just any Planeswalker either. Probably one of the better Planeswalkers ever printed. Still legal. It's like Mark's just going to replay that. There's a Saga, and here's why I say it's similar to Time Walk Effect, as Caleb got to draw a card for it, replace the Teferi, and Mark is making the exact same play that he had last turn. This time he just has a Patchwork that is not summoning sick. Looks like it's going to be Walking Bliss. It's going to put a trigger onto the Automaton, taking out the Teferi, saving Caleb a few life here. So Caleb did pick up a Solitude. He's going to pitch that second Teferi, pay the 2 for the ward. And there is that Ephemerate. See if it gets rebounded this time, since there's only one counter on the Ballista. It's not going to be able to take out the Solitude. And we'll go up to 5, picking up a fetch. And things go back to Mark, who's still only on 2 lands. Yo, how's it going, Eric? Appreciate you tuning in. I'm sure you must be busy. We've got Caleb and Mark here, just classic Hardened Scales versus 4-color matchup. No 1 mana 12/12s in sight just yet. So Mark with the Saga finally taking up to 2, be able to make a construct if he chooses, but looks like a Walking Ballista will come down instead, and it might pick up those extra 2 counters from the Ozolith. Looks like Solitude is just going to be taken care of by the Walking Ballista after the Sabaz comes down. Yeah, for real, we've been definitely missing our house shadow player. We've got too many Urza sagas going around for to call it uh real meta here. We need some blue diversity. Marktide's also a strong choice. I think still the usual players here. Casting expressive iterations in Marktide regions. But can never have enough of the decks that keep the format in check. It's like Caleb has a few lands in hand, but Leyline Binding is going to be taking care of the Ozolith here. It's going to go down to 4 and take out the Zabaz, which is going to give the Walking Ballista another counter. And looks like Caleb has a backup to Fury, so we might just be bouncing the Saga again, making it so Mark can't find another Ozolith after we just removed the first one with Leyline Binding. Caleb will fetch down to 12. Might be holding up an Ephemerate or maybe another Binding. Yeah, it looks like it is going to be an ending on that Walking Ballista. And before it's on its way out, it will shoot down the Teferi and Ren down to 3. So back to a more neutral state. Saga is going to make an appearance yet again. And a second Patchwork Automaton will be cast. Ren going downstairs, paying the 2 for ward, making sure Mark can't keep anything else on the board. Although now I think we're going to start seeing some constructs from Mark. They might not be large at first, but just amassing some sort of board into an empty one. Definitely a good start. Especially if your opponent keeps drawing lands with a Ren in play. Definitely giving Mark all the time he needs to set up. And notably, Inkmoth Nexus is able to turn itself into an artifact creature to stave off that Ren. But I do believe Mark will have another way to find an artifact here, as he's just going to make another construct. And maybe find an Ozolith. We are sideboarded, so we might see something out of the board here. Maybe a Pithing Needle of sorts, some kind of silver bullet. Mark's pretty high on life total too, and Caleb doesn't have many creatures in play, so I don't think Shadow Spear is the grab here. Ozolith seems pretty safe, but there's not too many counter shenanigans going on. It is going to be Pithing Needle. We'll get a naming on that in just a moment. Although I would like to believe it's going to either be Ren or Boseiju. Pendlehaven will be the land for turn. That's not going to do much other than adding green, but the construct is able to take out the Ren this turn. Looks like Sahili Rai was the name with Pithing Needles, so Mark giving himself a bit of assurance against the infinite combo, as I believe that's probably the best way he can interact. As I was saying earlier, can't really do much on the stack, so he can prevent the combo from even beginning by just needling the Planeswalker. Of course, Caleb is well equipped with a plethora of ways to answer the Pithing Needle, but if he's answering a needle, he's not killing a construct, more than likely, and giving Mark an even bigger edge. Gilbo Draw is really looking for Omnath, Expressive Iteration, something to get the ball rolling here. We did find an ending that is going to have to take out a construct just so Caleb stays alive. And Hardcast Fury is going to clear the way for that as well. Now Caleb with the advantage, having a creature in play. believe that is Mirix, the land that Mark has just played, from the new Phyrexia All is One set. And they got it up on screen right there. So it can tap for Wooburg if it's the first turn, and for 3 mana on a tap, it can make a colorless Might artifact creature token with Toxic 1 and can block. So pretty good for these longer games, especially right now. We're going to see Mark have a sort of Castle Ardenvale effect, being able to make some toxic creatures that will also deal regular damage. But here's an Eldamri's Call for Caleb. Gonna find an Omnath. Believe we still have a fetch in hand. If not, we have a draw to try and find one. And nothing after the Omnath draw, so things get passed back to Mark, but not before creating a Might here. The Mights are good at being aggressive. They are artifacts, I believe. Yeah, artifact creature token, so that will count towards sagas. And are pretty aggressive creatures, and not being able to block makes them a little harder to utilize on the defense, but like Mark is coming across for 2 here, 2 infect. Five mana for Caleb. Is an Elish Norn? 3, 2 green endurance, maybe? Nope, another Teferi. And we can tap a forest for that as Oath of Nissa is in play, allowing us to make mana of any color for casting a Planeswalker spell. I'm going to send in the Omnath, putting Mark down to 15. Here's a second Inkmoth Nexus. Going to boot up the first and pump it with Pendelhaven. That will prompt Caleb to cast an Eldamri's Call again. We might be solituding here. Yep. See the white evoke creature coming into play here. Pitching a spare Omnath. And no Ephemerate, just going to go straight to the graveyard for the Solitude. Gain Mark probably just 1 life. We may have been responding to the Pendelhaven activation. Yep, just 1 up to 16. Pass things back to Caleb. Come across for 4 again. Might not have drawn another spell. May have spoke too soon. Here's a hard-cast Fury. It's going to be a good blocker and a good way to end the game, as that is 10 damage in play right now. Welding Jar from Mark on his turn. And I believe Caleb is at 4 infect right now. And this would put him, excuse me, he's at 2 infect right now, and now he is at 4. Ending will take care of the Might, who cannot block but still can apply poison through its toxic ability. And here is a backup Fury. I think I would have held on to that ending just because you can cast it at instant speed. Maybe Caleb has not seen the text box on the Mites, maybe cannot realize that they cannot block, but it appears Mark has informed him of this as he is scooping up, and our players are going to game number 3 with 14 minutes left on the clock. It should be plenty of time, as these decks are very capable of closing the game quickly, so we'll see if Mark being on the play will make that big of a difference in just a moment here. All right, we're back for game number 3 here, just about 10 minutes on the clock. Tempo 1012 1012. Thank you for the 2-month sub. So Caleb started off a bit of a rocky start, not being able to cast his Ren, but was promptly exiled. Caleb with 3 mana now, being able to cast a Teferi, make Mark pick up his Walking Ballista. And Teferi doing the time walk thing yet again, Mark not having any Ozolith or Hardened Scales in play to capitalize off of his Hangerback Walkers or other creatures he may play. So Caleb now just gets to tick up Teferi and cast a Rend. Now he does have a choice of getting rid of the Hangerback Walker. He will. All right, just had to confirm with our players that Run 6 should have been a 2, and it should be. And we're all the way back there. And Mark is left with a 1/1 Thopter that is going to put the run down to 1. Mark has a few cards in hand. Kind of just needs a way to keep his creatures to stick around or do something when they leave. Not seeing an Ozolith definitely hurts having the Saga be dealt with as well. Ren is going to finish itself off by taking out an Automaton, paying the 2 ward, and taking Teferi up to 3 and just passing it back to Mark. So Caleb, not saying he's stuck on lands, he's definitely got 4, but these 4-color decks definitely want to continue making land drops for as long as possible. And now with an Arcbound Ravager, definitely missing that Ren 6 just a little bit. But it looks like we have a backup one in hand. And we have a Fury as well, so definitely want to make a land drop, but also deal with these creatures before they get out of hand. Caleb's going to lead with a Ren. And take it up this time, it looks like. Still thinking. Could be just taking out the Ravager while Mark's shields are practically down. He still has a green available for, I know there is the Kamigawa common that gives indestructible and hexproof and you gain 2 life. Looks like that's not in Mark's hand right now. Gonna make a 2/2 Thopter. That is gonna be solituded, pitch to Fury. Move Teferi back up to 2. Excuse me, move it up to 3. Now Mark's still with no board. In some trouble here. Just going to play a 1/1 Hangerback Walker. Now Ren gets to go up to 3, find Caleb's 5th land, and probably getting a red source here to cast this Fury. Or maybe not, holding off for now. Cameo Safekeeping. Yep, that's the one. I do believe Mark has some number of that in his list, but most likely not in his hand at the moment. It's going to be a hard cast Solitude, taking out the Hangerback Walker, so there's no leftover artifacts in play. Mark will draw and find an Inkmoth Nexus. Might be too little too late. We'll see what he can couple together. It's going to be a 3rd Hangerback Walker and an Arcbound Ravager. Mark finally finding a 4th land to be able to double spell in 1 turn. Caleb will ping the Arcbound Ravager, it looks like we're still thinking there. Might be headed to the graveyard. Gonna put that extra counter on Walker. And it will be bounced by Teferi. Caleb will come across for 3. Caleb in a pretty powerful position right now. The only thing going against him is the clock, I would say. But Mark not out of it yet. There's definitely still ways he can cobble together some damage here. I do think he's going to be a little reliant on Hardened Scales or Ozolith still. His creatures on themselves are not going to be doing too much, but not nothing. As we see a third Arcbound Ravager coming down here. And an Ephemerate on a Solitude on Unset means both of these creatures are going to be exiled at the beginning of Caleb's turn when we go to rebound the Ephemerate. Mark's still thinking on his turn here. Left him Inkmoth Nexus up so we could make an extra artifact if we wanted to, but we don't have red or green mana. Looks like we are going to sack the Hangerback Walker and move the counters from Arcbound Ravager over to Inkmoth Nexus. This might give us a way to go over the top of Caleb and get in some gradual infect damage over the course of the next few turns here. This Ephemerate will come back and not be able to target Inkmoth Nexus. I believe that's why Mark is making the play that he did, as one of his creatures is going to die anyways, and we kind of need to just do something that will actually last. And this is 5 mana for Caleb. Is this a Fury? It is. Okay, so getting the clock a little bit faster now. Mark down to 16. Caleb up to 22. Planeswalkers ticking up. Help making land drops. As well as providing more unsummons with Teferi. Lonely Wildling Jar for Mark could be useful if Caleb is on bolts, but I don't believe he is. A lot of exile effects here. And Dismember on the Fury is going to buy Mark a lot of time here. Come across for 4 Infect. I believe that's the first 4 that Caleb has taken, so we're a few turns away. Unless we can make any more counters go onto the Inkmoth, but Omnath adding damage as well as card advantage. Might be able to throw a wrench in Mark's plans. We'll see how big the Inkmoth can get in just the 1 turn. Solitude coming in yet again. Something marked down to 9, Caleb up to 25. Activated the Inkmoth. Triggered Caleb's fetch. That's going to be a Solitude, as we're going to get 4 mana from the second fetch and second land entering the battlefield. Solitude doing good work getting rid of the Welding Jar, and Mark sees the writing on the wall. Caleb has 10 damage in play, and Mark is no longer playing this game. So Caleb definitely navigating these games pretty well, making sure Mark can never keep too many permanents in play. A little unfortunate to see Mark not being able to find any of his Ozoliths or Hardened Scales, as those pretty mainstay copies in the deck that are just going to allow the deck to be able to do its thing. As we saw here, those artifact creatures by themselves don't really cut it against the likes of Ren and 6 or Teferi or the other MH2 elementals. Looks like Mark brought in a Tameo Safekeeping like we thought, Pithing Needle, 2 Dismember, which we saw, Phyrexian Metamorph, and Torpor Orb. Also pretty good cards, but being one-ofs, unfortunately, is not going to be the easiest way to find them when I think Mark's only card advantage spell, or card selection spell, is Ancient Stirrings, which would be able to find all of those, but not given enough time before Caleb amassed his Planeswalkers and Elemental Army and took over this match in 3. So I believe that was the last match for the round. So we should have another match coming up here momentarily. See you all for round number 2. All right, we are back here for round number 2 of Chupacabra Games Monday Modern. And we have our, I believe, one of our points leaders, Will, versus Zach. And I believe his first time here in the show. Will appears to be on 5-color land combo. I think that equates to Amulet Titan. It's what him and I both piloted at an RCQ this past weekend. We both finished X2 out of 6 rounds, so just 1 win shy of top 8ing, but pretty decent results so far. We've been trying out the amulet lists with the Mycosynth Gardens. It's pretty powerful card and some cool stuff going on. Definitely needs to be remastered a little bit just to see how everything works. I know Will is not on Dryads. He is on the 4 Zusa plan, whereas I do like the Dryad plan. I like playing Valakut and a little bit extra mana, and playing less Azusa, but looks like it's going to be a casual explorer here. for Will with a Mycosynth Garden, so the cat is out of the bag. Gonna have a tap land come in, being Talaria West. It looks like Zach is on a 4-color Elementals pile. You see a Kira and saw Dress Down as well, so might not be the best matchup for Will, but a Explorer is a good way to get things going, as it's harder to interact with something like Bolt or Solitude. I have access to 4 mana for Will next turn. Not too many shenanigans are going to be going on unless we see an amulet come down, but just a fetch for Zach and a pass back. Not sure if we're on Counterspell or just an abundance of elementals just yet. We'll have to wait and see. But it looks like Cavern probably naming human. And that will be 4 in Azusa. Looks like it resolved. We're going to put a trigger on the stack with Simic Growth Chamber, being able to pick up our Cavern and immediately replay it. I'd like to think that Cavern is either on Giant or Beast here. Will with the appropriate amount of mana for a Titan next turn. On turn 4. 1 extra mana too. We have enough mana in play already. The power of Azusa being able to let you play 3 total lands. See what Zach can do about this. Azusa's kind of done her damage. Still a little bit utility, but mostly that's all it's going to do is be able to accelerate the Titan player by a couple turns here. As long as the requisite mana is shown. I get a bit of a peek at Zach's deck here. I think I saw some counter spells. This may have just been the islands here, but we're going to fetch up a basic plains. And access to 3 mana, so we could have something like a Dress Down we could hold up. Always have a Solitude instant speed or the unlikely event of a Subtlety. Every so often you see those 1 copy hanging out in the main deck. This is just going to be a Teferi. So completely tapping out for Zach here, just going to be able to bounce Azusa and draw a card. We'll untap 6 lands in play. Do we have a Titan? Here's a Summoner's Pact. See if a Force Negation is hiding out for Zach. This should be able to find our Primeval Titan. Here we go. Looks like it resolves and triggered ability on the stack. Zach is going to Solitude. So I think without an amulet in play, you can just allow the Titan player to let the ability resolve of Primeval Titan. And just see what your opponent gets and then make your decision. There's not really any land that can protect the Primeval Titan from a Solitude. So Will's just going to get a bounce land to pick up the T-West and specifically Growth Chamber so you can have double blue and just finding an Urza Saga so we can make a alternate way of winning this game. Just assemble a construct army as well as finding an amulet that Will does not have yet. But if he finds one, he can make a second with Mycosynth pretty easily. The 2 mana for an iteration. On Zach's side of things is going to find a Teferi, Flooded Strand, and Prismatic Ending, all of which don't do too much here. Kind of looking for another Solitude, but finding a land is not a bad thing. Finds the Flooded Strand, notably no double blue, so if Will wants to resolve a non-Primeval Titan spell, it seems pretty likely that it's going to stick. Of course, Will does have to pay for Summoner's Pact next turn, and he can do so a little tricky here if he wants to make a construct pact for, or transmute for a pact and pay for the previous pact. I think we're going to need another land to be able to make this happen. Will is just going to pay for it with the 2 bounce lands. And that Saga should be moving up 2/2. It catches it right there. We are just 1 land away from being able to cast another Titan. But second bounce land is going to pick up a Cavern. And was just going to send it back with the ability to make a construct. The longer this game goes on, I think Zach is favored. But for this mid-game section, Will definitely has a lot of tempo going his way. He'll be able to make constructs as well as a uncounterable Primeval Titan next turn. But he's doing it through a Summoner's Pact, so we might be able. Zach might have a chance to interact there, especially with the Teferian play. I do believe Will does run at least 1 Pact of Negation main deck, so just getting the Titan to stick will be the first challenge, and no Amulet in play either. So even if the Titan does stick, it's not going to be as explosive so long as this Urza Saga sticks around until his next turn. It looks like Zach might be a little stuck on lands. He's taking a second in his main phase here. He's going to take up Teferi. It looks like a few elementals, couple Omnaths, Fury. And we're just going to cast an Omnath in hopes of finding a fetch land, I think, and be able to deploy an elemental to start a clock going here. Because if we did find a land, it's good news, but it is a breeding pool, so just 4 life going to be gained for Zach here, putting him back up to 20. Passing it back, but not before Will makes a construct here. Untap Saga up to 3. Looks like we do have enough mana to make a second construct, find an amulet, or expedition map. Looks like, yeah, we are going to find an amulet, and this Titan looks like it's going to resolve. We'll see if Will chooses to give it haste. Zach does have 6 cards in hand, but he did cast an iteration. Pretty likely that he has another one, but we did already see 1 Solitude, so. Let's see, Will's going to turn that garden into a second amulet, and we might be going for a second Titan here if we have another way to make more land drops. Here's our bounce land, can make us 4 mana. 2 black and 2 green. Make another green and a blue. So we have 2 black, 3 green, and a blue. Resolve the trigger of the Rot Farm, picking up the Growth Chamber. So now Will could go for a Summoner's Pact here. We haven't seen his last few draws. Might have something better to do. Here is the additional land dropper. I believe that, yeah, we knew about that. Is this actually, that is the one that was unsummoned from the Teferi. So is this allowing more blue mana to be produced so we can transmute this pact? Excuse me, transmute this Teleria West for a pact and still have enough mana to cast a Titan. Yep. And so we're going to get a pact. Pact, it looks like it's going to resolve. It's like we still have a pact on the stack. Players taking a minute to think about our lines. I believe Zach has priority here. I might just be thinking about what creature to find here. I think we have another land drop. We could find a cultivator. Yeah, Will agrees. Gonna find the beast. We have that Cavern of Souls. We can make it uncounterable, although Zach is tapped out, so might be better off playing a different land. That is the third land drop for the turn, boosting Will up to 8 mana in just floating mana. And gonna leave a green behind and cast a cultivator. There's land number 1, land number 2, 3, 4 with the cavern, 5 with the saga, 6 with the Besiege, you're still drawing cards, 7 with Boros Garrison. And that looks to be the end of it. So 7 lands coming in for Will here. It's going to make this Colossus an 11/11. We have a Boros Garrison play. Can we find, or did we find another Titan that will just be a way to find a Slayer Stronghold and throw this Colossus and Titan at Zach? It's going to be a number of triggers here. We're going to have 4 bounce triggers and 1 ETB from Saga. We should have named something with Cavern. And then, of course, all of these lands are going to have 2 additional triggers that just untap them. So 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 11. This is 22 mana just coming from these 7 lands. And as long as Will drew some sort of threat, we should be good here. Zach not conceding just yet because there is a possibility that Will just doesn't have any other creatures to play this turn. And if Zach untaps, could be on an ephemeral sort of line, be able to answer multiple Colossus or multiple Titans. Let's see, looks like we've finally resolved a few things. We've begun to resolve the bounce triggers. It looks like we are making mana off of the amulets, giving the additional untapped triggers. Wasn't showing us any other creatures just yet. I think we see, yeah, there's a Primeval Titan. This should be game in and of itself, especially if there's another Titan in hand. This will be able to find Slayer Stronghold, so long as it is not in Will's deck still. Or in Will's hand, excuse me. So maybe Slayer Stronghold is in hand for Will, as we're not finding it on the first Titan. Rather, we're going to find a Mycosynth Gardens, which is going to allow more creatures to be able to get haste. As however many amulets you have is basically the amount of creatures you can give haste, as it's going to allow Slayer Stronghold to keep being untapped here. So we might already have the second Titan, just getting this one out to be in place so we can give it haste with the next one. And we can give the new Titan, the one we just cast, and the Cultivator all haste, +2/+0, and Vigilance, which should be enough lethal considering Zach doesn't have white mana for an Ephemerate, so we would have to have 2 separate Solitudes and 2 separate white cards to be able to answer 2 creatures, let alone 3. And of course, that third creature that will live will be the one getting double strike here, as Vesuva is in Will's deck still, I believe. All right, looks like Zach does not have triple Solitude and is going to scoop up his cards after Will made a crazy amount of land drops, all spawning from an Azusa. pretty good display of how good Cultivator Colossus can be in an unchecked board um, when your opponent's tapped out. I think the downside of that card is it gets really hit by Dress Down. Um, it not only its ability is negated, it itself also does not survive um, the Flash enchantment. But our players are going to take a moment to sideboard here. We will be joining them for game number 2 momentarily, featuring Zach on the play. All right, sorry for the delays there, but we are here for game number two. It doesn't look like we've missed too much. Looks like Zach was on the play, did develop a run in 6-on-2, and is now finding a third land off of a expressive iteration. Will has a pretty slow start with a Urza Saga on 2 after a Sun Home on 1. I suspect a mulligan of sorts may have occurred here. And seeing Zach play the Besaiger rather than channeling it, or saving it to be channeled, can only mean one of two things: is that he already has a Besaiger in hand, or he really needs to make this third land drop. And I think it may be the latter. But Will countering back with just a second Urza Saga, so we're gonna be able to make a construct and find an amulet on Will's next turn. As long as we have a mana accelerant, we should be able to cobble together enough mana for a Titan here, just providing Zach's interaction. And it does look like Zach actually has another Besaiger and a fetch in hand. So by playing that Besaiger, it might throw Will off the Suns. It's going to be fourth land plains for Zach here. See if he chooses to hold up interaction mana, or if we want to cast some spells during the mid phase here. And it's going to be Boseiju on the Urza Saga with 2 lore counters on it. But before it is destroyed, Will's going to create a construct here. Looks like we left Pact in. So Will now with a green mana, Zach kind of helping him out a little bit, although I believe Will probably has another green source or 2 in hand. And it will be an amulet coming down off of a Sun Home, an attack for 2 at Ren. And we are just passing things back to Zach here after the attack. Not too much to commit after the fact. And here's our land. So probably no Omnath if we're playing the fetch first. I spoke too soon. Here is an Omnath post Windswept Heath. Curious as to why we didn't wait for the fetch, maybe saving that fetch for next turn to be able to deal damage to face, but I don't think the clock is going to be that fast. Well, let's see where this goes. That'll find a Boseiju for Zach off the Ren, and it's going to be pretty powerful stopping Saga here. See, before we draw, no, we're just going to let the Saga resolve. Looks like we get to make a construct here and to find a second amulet. It looks like instead of a second amulet, we're going to find a pithing needle here, which is going to name Windswept Heath, uh, effectively locking out that land for Zek. And since it's his only fetch with Ren, that might actually lock Zek out of more lands. It appears our players may have drawn an extra card here. Our table judge has handled that with the mystery card Thoughtseize effect resolution, however you want to refer to that as. Somewhere along the line, somebody picked up an extra card, and we have just floated that back to the way it should be. It's like Will is back in the tank, seeing if we have a bounce lane plus a mana accelerant, and then a threat at the end to top things off. Zach is effectively tapped out for the moment, and we will see just what happens here. He had a cultivator. Opponent didn't have dress down, and then he had two amulets in play. 7 lands come down. Yeah, Pit the Needle naming. No, it was Windswept Heath. Because at the time, Windswept Heath was the 5th land for Zach, and there wasn't any other lands in the graveyard for red to grab, so yeah. And doing the Urza Saga trick too, where you find Needle, because like the Windswept Teeth was in play, but you have to crack the Windswept Teeth before the yeah. And it was good enough to get a Leyline binding out, so the construct army putting in work.
Also, I feel like in a lot of matchups against Titans, you have to use your Leyline bindings as a non thing. Like if you're Leyline binding Titan.
Oh, because they just besiege you the Titan.
Yeah,
the Leyline binding get a free Titan.
Yeah, they get to go instant speed Titans with 2 mana.
True.
Yeah, I'm doing that and stuff like that.
Yeah, you did that to me a few times. I think.
Yeah, like you have to use it to stop their like ambulance and their dryads and their Tuzas and stuff like that, and not let them utilize that. Stuff.
Literally everything else. Yeah.
I can't let them just have free 2 mana play.
Right. Will's just shy of lethal here with 9 power in play, but there is an Omnath blocking the path, so with an unlocked fetch land now as well.
If he can find you can find himself any artifact though, he attacks him for favorable attacks, like trading one of these.
True, that's a lot better than yeah. Just slam it into the 3/3s.
And it's an actual lethal attack too, so it's forced to make some action.
Right.
However, if he has something like a solitude, he's pretty bad. ultimately, it might not matter though. So he has 3 attackers. He can use 1 health.
Yeah.
With no amulet either.
Yeah, he could just die here. He has to draw into something more blockers essentially.
I mean, he's got a shit ton of
I
mana.
mean, here's 4 lands in. 5.
The thing is, that mana is not actually producing anything because he has no maintenance. So
Yeah.
he's just redrawing into it.
Is there a way for him to give the cultivator haste?
Does he have Sun Home?
He is Sunhope, but not Slayers.
And Haste wouldn't do anything.
Why not?
Oh no.
He's at 38. Oh, it's Vigilance, so he can.
Oh
try
yeah.
again.
Well, if he gives a double strike,
If you give a double strike, it's a one shot probably.
I don't know if he has quite enough mana without the amulet. Missing an amulet,
5, 6,
huge.
7, 8, 9.
If he hits Slayers who didn't play land yet, he definitely could though.
Yeah,
Because he's got the World Toy from the thing, and he's got 1 Gardens.
right. To filter the mana, yeah. So these are all the bounce triggers. He's got to have Slayers in his hand, right?
This is why I wanted him drawing this list. Like for turns like these where you can set up like multiple stuff.
You just win.
He
You can
also
clear the board. Like
yeah.
there's a lot
Follow
more.
through ties,
ones, like-
lightning bolts.
yeah.
As well as it can just kill them when you call bosses like that.
6 mana.
I'm not looking forward to this matchup if we have to play another 4-color mirror.
Who's the mic on? Like one mic on. Okay.
Less frequently, but yeah.
So we're getting to Talaria was might be anticipating that he's gonna untap here.
Yeah. Typically in there, they just shoot a message saying like, no, I feel like
All right, we are back for round number 3 here of Chupacabra Games Monday Modern. A little bit late to this match, but recover things. It looks like Zach has cast a Ren and 6 on turn 2 after being on the draw. And allowing Adam to draw 2 cards, it looks like, off of his Sentinels, but as a result, being able to eliminate one of them from the board. Hammer Time is definitely a deck that doesn't get to see too many cards, so allowing them to not draw cards off of the Esper Sentinel is a pretty big part of this, and it looks like Adam's coming in with a hammer as early as turn 3 here. Attack for an 11. Zach will put him down to 5. Pretty quick start from Adam. We'll see if Zach has anything to rebuttal. We know Solitude, Prismatic Endings in the deck. A lot of answers here. Something like Teferi would be pretty good here too. Just being able to unsummon the Esper Sentinel. But still allow Adam to draw a card. I know Lightning Bolt or Fury is going to save Zach here. It's got to be some sort of exile spell. I think I do see a Teferi in his hand as well. Definitely worth the cost of allowing your opponent to draw a card if it means you survive another turn. We could alternatively ping. It looks like we need to use the Ren to find a land, but we could have pinged the Esper Sentinel and then bounce the hammer, removing all of Adam's creatures from play. But that seems like a less than stellar option. It looks like it's gonna be Pure Steel Paladin. And just a pass back. Zach here, who's at 3 life. Trying to claw his way back. We need something like an Omnith here. Stave off. No, actually, it's going to be a counterspell on the Pure Steel here. All right. We're here for game number 2 with Adam on the play this time. We had a pretty strong start for game number 1, but Elementals was able to claw things back and turn the corner. And we'll see what Adam can do. I believe he was on the play last game as well, so maybe can have a bit more of a protective start. And looks like we're on a pretty hefty mulligan here for Adam as well. Might be down to 5, putting 2 back. Yeah, that's what it looks like. All right. So turn 1 will be an Esper Sentinel and just pass back. It's gonna be a Windswept Teeth and probably just get. Okay, we're getting a Sacred Foundry. Might be seeing a Prismatic Ending. I'll see if Adam gets a draw here. Yeah. See, he shifts it over to Exile and picks up a card that leads me to believe Prismatic Ending is the answer that Zach has. So it might be a Stoneforge Mystic turn here for Adam. To start developing some sort of board presence, potentially getting a Cauldron complete, or maybe just a hammer. So that was a Stoneforge picking up a Cauldron complete, passing things back to Zach now. Going to be a Sigarda's Aid after redeploying a second Esper Sentinel. And Leyline Bind and take care of the Stoneforge as to get rid of the Cauldron threat. Might be a bit of a bait here by Adam, just so that his other creatures live, and rather that they get attacked down when he's not attacking, so he can try to force a creature through while he does have one that's attacking. Zach really just needs to take care of these creatures that are in play. Looks like Renin 6 is going to come down. Going to be paying them 1. So no extra cards are drawn here. And probably just going to be ticking down, killing that Esper Sentinel. It appears to be the case. Do we have a hammer coming down here? We do. So a hammer is going to make that Esper Sentinel live. As well as create an 11/11. It's like Adam just having the 1 card left in hand. And we are going to pitch for Solitude right now. And it's going to be Teferi Time Raveler. Bouncing it back in Ursa Saga. We saw this earlier today. Very powerful play by the 3-mana Planeswalker. Able to effectively time block your opponent when they're bouncing a land. It's allowed to do so because it specifically says target artifact, creature, or enchantment, and doesn't say non-land. So Inkmoth is going to take care of the pesky Planeswalker for now. And a second Sigarda's Aid will come down for Adam, looks like. Right, so Adam with no creatures in play other than the Inkmoth as a land, but he does have a hammer in play. He was 2 Sigarda's Aid. And 1 hit with an Inkmoth is all you need. Maybe Adam's holding on to a piece of protection here in hopes of drawing another hammer or a way to equip the first one. And we will get another hammer when this saga completes on chapter 3. Here is a backup saga that will allow us to create a card construct as well as activate an Inkmoth if we so choose. So will be a card strike being created here. All right, we're here for our fourth and final round. Chupacabra Games Monday Modern. We have 4-color control versus Skahili Cat combo. So basically, very similar sort of decks here, except Caleb is going to be having 2 copies of Sahili Rai and 2 copies of Feldar Guardian, which is going to allow him to perform a Splinter Twin style combo. And whereas Zach is on counter spells in place of those 4 cards. Other than that, I think the lists are very similar. I don't believe Zach is on Oath of Nissa, whereas Caleb is. Some few minor differences, but for the most part, we do have a mirror match here for our fourth and final round. And Zach is going to deploy an Omnath turn 4, which is going to be met by a Leyline Binding with the trigger on the stack. Looks like we have a Leyline Binding targeting another Leyline Binding. Return an Omnath and draw an additional card. Made a Ren Let's pick up a fetch, but facing down a Fury and an Omnath, not a great spot for Caleb here. Board has been slightly cleared. We have dealt with the Omnaths, and only a Fury remains. Fury, of course, capable of taking down a game on itself, especially against an opponent like Caleb, who I believe is not at any lightning bolts. One of Fury's worst matchups. Here is a backup Omnath. They're going to get a draw trigger. and a fetch land to back it up. So Caleb facing down all these elementals. But if Zach doesn't have a counterspell and Caleb has the combo, there's still a chance here.